what I walked in on shocked me in more ways than I ever thought possible. And I think it was only because it was the last thing I ever expected to see. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Nadine and I like to make videos about our life here in China. Now recently I started this little series where it's kind of like a storytelling series where I tell some stories about when I first came to China 10 years ago, because my life back then and my life now are very different. If you're not into that kind of storytelling videos, just please go ahead and check out some of my other videos. I have many playlists about our daily life, some food videos, just everything related to life in China. But if you're here for the storytelling, welcome back. I know I took like a long break. I've been super busy, and finally I'm getting around to doing the next episode, which is called The Naked Bathhouse. So let's get right into it. All right, so I want you to keep in mind that I had now only been in China for 3 days. So everything is still very new to me. Everything is still, I'm still recovering from jet lag. I'm just still in complete culture shock mode. So it's only the 3rd day for me in China at this point. So on this particular day, I remember clearly that it was a Sunday and we had eaten dinner, and shortly after dinner, I told Maina that I'm just gonna go up to my room, and she told me to have a rest. So I had slept earlier in the day for about 5 hours because, like I said, I was still dealing with jet lag and all those things. So I would frequently, these few days that I've been there, just try to take some naps during the day so I can, catch up. So because I had slept for about 5 hours earlier that afternoon, I wasn't really tired, but, I was just kind of chilling in my room. So I was barely in my room when suddenly I heard a knock at my door. And when I opened, it was Maina. And she just really nonchalantly told me, like, hey Nadine, do you want to take a shower with me?
Huh?
And I was like, I'm good, no thanks, I'm okay. I had no idea what she meant by that, but I knew that I did not want to take a shower with her. So I was like, I'm good. So she was really puzzled by this. Like she couldn't understand, because she knew that I love taking showers because I had been taking showers at the house, which no one else seems to be doing. So it must have been really shocking to her. Like, how can she say no? She's like super into showers. So she was just a little confused, and she kept insisting like, no, let's take a shower. And then eventually I just kind of gave up on saying no, and I agreed, even though I had no idea what she actually meant by that. So I mentioned this before, our bathroom was right next to my room. So when she told me to get my things ready, let's leave, I then realized, okay, she doesn't mean we're going to take a shower together in the house. Like, I don't know where I'm living here, who are these people? So I was like, okay, we're obviously going to go somewhere. And maybe she misspoke when she said, like, let's go take a shower. I was really confused when she said this. Now, we went downstairs, we got into the car, and we started driving around, and then she told me that we're going to stop somewhere because she needs to pick up her pajamas. Now, you can imagine, I just sat there in the car, and I was just thinking to myself, I'm confused, I'm lost in whatever's going on here, but I'm just going to go with it because I'm just not going to question anything. So we only drove for about a few blocks, and then we stopped in front of this, what was called a Western restaurant. It had like a big sign saying Western restaurant, which I never went to, but I also I'm not so sure what kind of Western food they had. But I had seen this place many times driving by there. So we had stopped there, and I thought maybe she meant something else. Maybe she meant dinner, but we just had dinner. So I was again really confused. But then when we stopped and we went in, we actually went into the building across from this Western restaurant. So we entered this building, and it was very nice. I just followed Maina, and then we sat down, and then they gave us slippers to put on. And then when we gave this man our shoes, he put like a tag with a number on our shoes. And then in turn, they gave us like a ring, like a wristband with like a key on it, and also a number. And at this time, that's when we went through the next big door. And what I walked in on shocked me in more ways than I ever thought possible. And I think it was only because it was the last thing I ever expected to see. Naked women everywhere, just casually standing around like it's nothing, okay? So I did not know where to look. Okay, I walked in and it was just naked people, naked women. Okay, not like mixed, naked women. And I didn't know where to look. Like, where am I supposed to look? I don't know where to look. So I just pretended like, oh, this is just normal, just like followed Maina. And then another lady who was, thankfully she was dressed, she came to me and then she took me to a row of lockers. And the lockers were very nice. They were like super 5-star. So you used your little wrist key with the number, would have the number of your locker. And then you would obviously, unlock your locker. So I stood there and it was super hot in there. It was like a humid hot. And we were dressed in a lot of winter gear. So I felt very hot. So I started, taking off my scarf, but very nervously doing so, because now I was standing there and I was realizing, wait a second, if everyone is naked, what does this mean for me? So I was just feeling super nervous, but I was also burning hot. So I just pretended like I knew exactly what I was doing. So I slowly started taking off my, my hat, putting it in my locker, my scarf. And I was kind of like taking really long because every piece of item I take off, eventually, there's going to be nothing left. So I did not want to get to that point. So I just kind of slowly started taking my things off. And then suddenly I saw Maina next to me. And she was now dressed in these little pajamas. So she told me to go with her. And then I had to pick out my own pajamas and this like paper underwear, I guess. So I remember standing there looking at the table and they had, I think maybe 2 or 3 different kinds, like the pictures on them. So I just, nervously, but kind of calmly at the same time, I think I acted calmly, but in my heart, I was very, very scared. Okay. So I just took my pajamas and then I went back to my locker. And, as I was walking to my locker, another naked woman came past me and I just cringed on the inside. Now, here's where I would like to insert like a kind of sidebar. I have a lot of Asian subscribers and I know a lot of Asian people from different Asian countries and also including a lot of Chinese people who watch my videos. So some of my viewers might be confused about why I'm like freaking out about this. And that's because in South Africa, we don't do this. As a child, I was raised to believe that nobody is allowed to see you naked, okay, except for like your mom. That's like the only person who's allowed to see you naked up until a certain age. Once you become like a teenager, your body becomes your own and it's like this private thing. So for me to be naked in front of strangers was an absolute like insane thought. It was just something that I'd never heard of that before. This is not a joke, okay? I'd never heard of this kind of place where people go to a public place to take showers and people are just like naked in front of each other without a care in the world. Because I don't know, maybe, different cultures are of course different. And I just know that in South Africa, I haven't lived there for 10 years. Maybe now it's a thing, but I remember growing up and being a young adult in South Africa, you did not do this. I assume if you went to the gym and you had to take a shower at the gym, probably you might be faced with some naked people, but I don't know because I've never been to the gym in South Africa, never in my whole life, okay? So this was very strange to me because it was shocking, like naked in front of people that you don't know. This is absolutely taboo. Okay, so like you don't do that. So this is why I was like freaking out at the time, because this is just not something that we do at all. And I'd never heard of this. I didn't know that that was a thing even. Okay. Now, sidebar, I also went to South Korea many times during my time here in China. And during one of my trips to Seoul, I stayed in a hostel and I met this German girl, and she loved it. She like went to these bathhouses every single night that we were there, and she loved it. So perhaps it's a thing in Germany where she was from, or maybe she was just really well traveled and, used to all kinds of, different scenarios of things. I have no idea. But maybe you can tell me in the comments where you are from, where you're watching from, or where you were born, if this is a thing that you do, or if you would feel comfortable doing that. Because I just remember at the time I was terrified. I was literally terrified. And yeah, you might say like, why? It's just a bunch of women. It didn't matter because I'd never been naked in front of strangers, even my best friends. You don't do that where I'm from. So it was very, if you've never done that before, you feel very vulnerable and exposed. And not just that, I was the only foreigner in there. So people stared at me all the time just because I was different. So can you imagine if I had to take my clothes off? Like, I am sure that people were still going to stare at me, not because they want to see me naked, but because I was a foreigner, and they're going to see like the naked foreigner. I did not feel comfortable with this at all. So at this point, I walked back to my locker, and then Maina told me, okay, get dressed. And I looked at her in complete horror, okay? Did she actually mean get dressed right there in front of everyone? So at this time, I'm all for cultural exchange, and I had been open to everything that I had experienced in like the 3 days that I had been there. But this was something that I just could not get myself to do, okay? And I told her that in my country, it is unacceptable to get undressed in front of strangers. Now, I think that was maybe a little bit exaggerated, but she didn't know that. I didn't feel comfortable to do that. So she laughed and she said, this is China. No one will look at you when you are getting dressed. And we're thinking like, they're gonna look at me because I'm Lawai. So I just told her, look, I really do not feel comfortable doing this. And she told me that if I didn't wear my pajamas, then I wouldn't be able to go upstairs. And by this point, I just didn't want to know what was upstairs. So I was nervously telling her that I didn't feel comfortable. And I clearly remember that I was on the verge of tears, okay? For someone to tell you to strip down naked, if it's not something that you've ever done in your life before, I didn't like this situation that I was in this whole experience. I was literally on the verge of crying. So they kind of like try to figure out like, okay, what do we do with this sensitive foreigner? So she told me to follow her, and then she showed me this bathroom stall where I could get dressed. Now, of course, this was a public place, and 5 stars or not, the toilet was a squatter toilet in the ground. So now I want you to quickly picture this scenario, okay? This was like roughly a 1 meter by 1.5 meter bathroom stall, very small, with a toilet in the ground, okay? The whole room was very moist and humid because we were inside like a bathhouse with lots of showers running. So the walls were wet, okay? There was like water and steam dripping from the walls, okay? So now I'm there, I'm dressed in a lot of winter clothes. I didn't think at the time to maybe take off most of my clothes and just leave on my last shirt and my thermal pants and just, remove that in the bathroom. I didn't think of that. So I was still wearing some layers of sweaters and shirts and like my thermal pants and my jeans and things like that. So here I was. For some reason, I had my phone. I don't know why, but I was clutching my phone. I was trying my best not to drop my phone in the toilet. And the floor was also soaked with water, not because of any other reason other than it was steamy. Okay, it was super steamy. The walls were full of steam, the floor, everything. So here I am, I'm trying to get dressed. There's no place to hang my clothes. The floor is wet. I have to be careful not to drop my phone in the toilet. My slippers are extremely slippery, and I'm trying to hold on to the wall, which is also wet, and I'm just trying my best not to actually slip into the toilet myself. Now, this was quite a challenge, and after a while, Maina came, and she was probably wondering, like, why is it taking so long to get dressed? So eventually I had done it, okay, with 2 hands only, like grasping my phone, my clothes, taking off my clothes, putting on my pajamas without actually putting anything on the floor because it was, you know, wet. I finally managed to do it. So I went out to the locker area, and on the way out, I noticed this big swimming pool, and I assumed that it was like a hot water pool. No one was in it at the time, but suddenly I had this image in my mind of just like 30 naked women just like, you know, chilling in the pool. So at this point, we grabbed some drinks from the refrigerator, and then we headed upstairs. And at this time, again, I had no idea what we were headed to. I was just really starting to regret always agreeing to everything that Maina says. So it was at this point when I suddenly remembered that Mr. Chen came with us. And it's like suddenly in my mind, I just realized that he was on the other side. And just, you know, like suddenly I had this mental image of what Mr. Chen's side was like. And I was like, no, just cut that image out of your head, okay? So anyway, we went upstairs and we pushed through this big heavy door, okay? And it was actually quite nice upstairs. There was like a ping pong table and like a pool table. And then there was, on the other side, there were a bunch of smaller sitting areas with these see-through curtains around them. And then there was a bigger room next to that with like these raised bamboo floors. That's like the traditional Chinese beds, I guess. And then Maina and I decided to play ping pong. And it was actually the first time I played ping pong, and I had quite a lot of fun. And then soon, finally, Mr. Chen joined us, and his pajamas were like very Chinese. I really liked the print on his pajamas. It was like super cool. Whereas the girls' pajamas, it was very floral. It was very like ladylike and floral. So Mr. Chen started to play pool, and then Maina told me to go play with him. Now, I think I might have made Mr. Chen very uncomfortable because he did not really like to be in my presence alone for too long. So we probably played pool for like a minute, and then he handed the stick to Maina and he just walked off. So we continued the game, and then a little while later, Mr. Chen came back, and then he just watched us play. So a little while later, we were done with our pool game, and then she asked me if I wanted to go into the room with the bamboo floors, and I agreed. So as soon as we entered, I immediately realized that this was a steam room. And I'm not a kind of person that really enjoys steam rooms because I think the excessive heat, it just makes me feel uncomfortable. Like my head, I don't like to feel hot, okay? I like the feeling of overheating is just really uncomfortable to me. But, you know, again, I was just gonna agree to things, even though I regretted it 5 minutes ago. So we went in there. So we threw our towels on these raised bamboo floors, and then we sat down, and it was burning hot, okay? It was like a sauna room. So a little while later, Mr. Chen left again, and then Maina and I, we were laying down. And then the sweat, you know, started to run down my face. And of course, I was still wearing makeup. Now, we must have stayed in there for about 40 minutes. And needless to say that we sweated, is that a word? So much, okay? But it actually felt really good. During this time, we spoke about Chinese tea, Chinese marriage, the Harbin Ice Festival, the Great Wall of China, Beijing in summer, Hong Kong, and just all things China. And it was really nice. So after a while, 2 ladies came in, and we noticed that some of the lights outside were turned off. So we got up, and then we sat in the room outside the steam room. And I think this was a kind of transition room because it was still hot in there, but not as hot as the steam room. So we sat in there for a while so that our bodies could just adjust to the new temperature. My hair was a complete mess, okay? If you don't know this, I have curly hair, and humidity and steam makes me like poof into like an afro head, okay? So my hair was a mess. And like I had a lot of sweat on my face, and my makeup, you know, was like all disturbed. So after a while, we went downstairs, and once again, I had to face all the naked women. And then Maina told me that she was going to take a shower, and she asked me if I wanted one too. And I asked her, you know, were the showers open, or did you have like your own separate shower stall? And she was like, no, it's just like open, like everyone just take a shower. And then I was like, you know what? I was so hot and I was so sweaty. And I know at that time I needed to take a shower to like, cleanse myself. But there was no way that I could get myself to actually go in there and take a shower. So I just went back to my bathroom stall and I got dressed. And then, I felt really good. You're like hot. I feel like the steam obviously soothes your body and your soul. So we went out of the locker room, back into the front desk area, and then we waited for our shoes. So again, I put on like the thousands of my coats and my scarf and my hat and everything, and I was ready to face the cold again. So by the time we got home, it was already midnight. Maina stayed in the car while Mr. Chen went upstairs with me to open the door because they lived in a different apartment. I went inside and Emily, Anna, and Michelle were already sleeping. And at this point, I did not care, okay? And I cared even less about their once in 3 days shower rule. I was going to Shenyang to see 2 other people the next day and I needed to take a shower. And I did just that. It was really amazing. I was really amazed at how amazing my skin felt. No moisturizer in the world could make my face feel that great. I decided then and there that the naked bathhouse would become a weekly thing for me. I never went back. Now, in hindsight, I didn't think about this at the time, but in hindsight, imagine being Maina at this time. She takes me to a place where I could take a shower. And then I refuse to take a shower. And then I come home and I take a shower. She must have thought like something is seriously wrong in this Lawai's head. Okay, like I'm sure she figured like, there's something amiss in her head. So that night I went to bed and I slept amazingly, okay, because from all the steam and finally I took a hot shower, I just went to bed and I was traumatized. I was left slightly traumatized by this whole scenario. And like I said at the time, I said that, I will go back there again, but I actually never went back again.